Hello guys, Drawbacks here, coming at you with a new Yu-Gi-Oh video, and in today's Yu-Gi-Oh video I feel like a card discussion, and today's card discussion is going to be on a card that was literally announced not too long ago today for me, probably a few days ago when you see this video, and this card is something that I pretty much feel really was so close to being really strong and really powerful, but then Konami just barely missed the mark due to a couple of things. And this card is a new card featuring Bow of the Goddess, Appaloosa, one of the very good cards in the game, being released in Power of the Elements, and it is called Ultimate Slay, a new spell card coming out in the game that honestly is really powerful in its own right, but I feel like just missed a few things for it to actually be meta relevant and played in a lot of decks, and because of this I feel, yes, we'll see play when it first gets released, but then we'll slowly fade away into the obscurity of not being played at all. And let's read its effects so you guys can understand why. So, send one monster from your extra deck to the graveyard, then target one monster your opponent controls with the same card type. Fusion, Synchro, Xyz, Pendulum, or Link. This is a cost. Return it to the extra deck. So pretty much what this card says, you can target your opponent's card and send a card from your extra deck as cost, and then you get to go ahead and return that opponent's extra deck card to the extra deck. So you send a fusion, you get a fusion in your grave. You send a link, your opponent loses a link. Card's pretty decent in that retrospect. And also it has the additional effect that says your opponent cannot activate monster effects in response to this card's activation. So it's got that additional effect that Dark Ruler no more has that says, oh yeah, I activate this effect, you can't rechain to it with anything but your spells and trap cards. Sure, stuff like, I don't know, the Abyss Dragon, the one that the Resonators play, can get around it, but not really much else, because if you activate a spell and then you chain that, there's not a lot that can actually get around this. So it's a very strong card. But honestly, I feel like this card is lackluster for a few reasons, and I wanted to talk about them in this video because I feel like because of these reasons, the card isn't going to do as well as people think it might do, and it does hinder the card's power in retrospect, because honestly this card was so close to being possibly one of the best side or main deck cards in the game, but because of these small issues, I feel like the card is just going to fade away into obscurity when it could have been such a powerful card. So let's go ahead and talk about it. So what's my first real gripe about this card? Well, the first gripe is it targets. Now, targeting isn't always a bad thing in the game, obviously, because targeting means that, well, you can still hit something and you can get rid of it. But the problem is, the majority of things that you would want to hit from the extract of this card, 9 times out of 10, such as Dragoon, will say they can't be targeted. And if this card is in your hand and your opponent has a Dragoon on the board, which is definitely going to become somewhat more meta relevant going into the game currently, just because we're going to be getting the new Despia stuff coming out soon, and we're going to be having all of these decks playing Dragoon and all of this, well, things like that. This card, it just kind of goes downhill because of that. You can't target a Dragoon, you can't target these boss monsters from the extra deck, so how are you going to deal with them, and how is this card going to be useful if you can't hit those big Omni Negate cards that can't be targeted? Now, sure, this does actually have things that it can still target, such as Baroness, Destroy Phoenix Enforcer. It has a lot of really strong extra deck cards that can still return to the extra deck and get stuff in your graveyard, such as if you're playing Brandy, you could send any of your, well, Aluba dragons to the graveyard to go ahead and get a search during the end phase, or if you want, you can send Unts to get an additional pop. But at the same time, I feel like the card is just kind of lackluster because it does target. If it didn't target, I feel like being able to just have that little extra bit where it says, oh, instead of targeting, you can just go ahead and send one card from your extra deck to the graveyard and then return one card of that type from the field to the extra deck, would be a lot better. But because of that, it kind of is lackluster because of that. But still, I digress, it's still nice outside of that. And my only other gripe with this card really is that it's not a quick play spell. And I get it, if this was a quick play spell, this card would be nuts. Being able to quick play return Dragoons to, well, sorry, not Dragoons, destroy Phoenix Enforcer to the extra deck, insane. You can literally go, oh, my opponent activates Destroy Phoenix Enforcer, well, I chain Ultimate Slay to stop my opponent from doing anything and return it to the extra deck. Oh, you can't respond with anything else? Sick. Oh, you summon a Baroness on your end phase, I flip this, I send a Synchro from my extra to the graveyard, probably an Omega or a Pegasus Agnista, just so you can, you know, get resources and get neg on your opponent from that, and then just get rid of it during the end phase or your opponent's turn. Oh, your opponent's mid-combo? Cool, I'm going to send any Link monster from my extra deck to the graveyard to go ahead and get rid of that really powerful Link monster. And yes, this would have made the card very powerful and very strong, but I feel like because it isn't a quick play spell, it's just gonna fade away. Because the fact of the matter is, yes, this is a very, very strong card, but when it comes to cards like these, being able to remove just one card isn't that great. And the problem with that is, if you only remove one card, you're only getting rid of one problem. And in the current game right now, we're seeing decks that put multiple problems on the board. Look at something like, I don't know, Sword Soul. Consistently, they're putting 2 big synchro monsters on the board. They're putting a Baroness and a Shishao at least, so that's 2 negates, including whatever back row they have. Oh, you're going up against something like, well, Phantom Knights. Well, they're going to be putting multiple negates on the board as well. They're going to be putting now, obviously, Destroy Phoenix. If also has 1 as a disrupt, they can put Utopic Future Draco on the board. They can put Appaloosa if they're not playing the Brave engine. Like, you can put a ton of stuff on the board this way as well, and stuff like Phantom Knights. Like, any deck, even Invoked as well, can put multiple disruptions on the board. And this card, yes, being able to get rid of one of them with your opponent being unable to respond is great, but at the end of the day, getting rid of one problem when every board makes up to like 3 problems is just kind of silly when you think about it, because if you can't deal with a majority of these problems, it's gonna be an issue. So I feel like just having that quick play effect, having the ability to just return without targeting, would have made this card slightly better. And I'm not saying it should have had both of those things. No. If this card was non-targeting quick play, that would be the most expensive card in the game at the current moment, and it would mean, oh yeah, I get to just send an Unce or some other broken extra card to the graveyard, like maybe Fajit for a Link monster to get a Mole. Like, that's really, really strong. But the fact of the matter is, I feel like it should have had maybe one of these 2 things, the quick play ability, just to be able to utilize it during your opponent's turn so you can deal with your opponent's problems, or the ability to just non-target removal so you can get rid of really big boss monsters such as Dragoons. Like, I feel like it having these kind of effects bit on it would have been a lot better than what it currently is. And I feel like because of that, it's just gonna fade away and end up being a card that, yeah, it can be usable, it can be really good, but will you really play it? So yeah, I just wanted to kind of talk about this card, give my thoughts on it, because yeah, it's a great card, don't get me wrong. Non-chainable removal, always good. Oh, you can send things like Unce, Fajit, Wind Pegasus, Agnista. You can send any extra cards to the graveyard to just deal with any monster on the board, and if it has an effect when it's in the graveyard, you get to use that effect. That's really, really strong. Like, hell, you can, if you're up against an Xyz deck, you can put Totally Awesome in your extra deck. Go ahead and send that Totally Awesome to the grave, and then just return it to the extra deck. Hell, if you're playing Waters, you get more advantage out of that as well. But at the same time, I just feel like a card that isn't quick play, has to target, can only remove one thing. Like, honestly, if it could remove multiple things, so you could send like, I don't know, 5 extra deck cards, 5 different types from the extra deck to the graveyard, like, I don't know, maybe up to like, you could send 1 of each type on the board instead of just target 1 and then just get rid of that one. I feel like it would have been a lot stronger, but because it's only a single removal that sends 1 card from the extra to the graveyard and is non-chainable is great. But the fact that it's not a quick play, it does target, so it can't get rid of things like Dragoon. And I know I say Dragoon a lot in this, but you got to remember, these extra deck cards that can't be targeted are very strong most of the time, and Dragoon is just the best example of cards that can't be targeted in the extra deck. And when your opponent has a Dragoon and you draw this, you're not going to be able to out that Dragoon, and that's upsetting. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about this card. I feel like this card is a good card. I feel like it does have a lot of potential, has a lot of power in it, but right now, in the current game where we're making like 3 things on the board that you can't deal with 9 times out of 10, I'd probably rather just play Dark Ruler no more and then just make a board that breaks your board and then just watch you die when you can't break my board. Like, that's just how I feel about this card. But guys, what is your personal opinions on this card? Like, I think it's a great card. I think it definitely has a lot of potential built into it. I just feel like it's missing these key factors that really just made it kind of meh to me, just not the best. And don't get me wrong, this card can be used in some decks to be really strong. Like, for instance, you could use this in a Despia deck very easily to get those Brandeds in the graveyard. You could use this in a trap-based deck to remove those one big boss monsters issues. You could use this in a lot of different strategies as a side deck card. But in all honesty, I don't ever see this being a main deck card. I don't ever see this being a card that's sided in every deck. I just see this being like a niche thing that you can maybe play in like maybe a single format where every deck maybe plays fusions, or every deck maybe plays XCs or links or anything along those lines. But guys, what's your personal thoughts on this card though? I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions in the comments section below. I think the card's alright. I don't think it's a great. I feel like they were so close to making an insane card. But yeah, that's just my thoughts and opinions on this. But guys, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Drawbacks 1, signing out. Later.